Please rise as you are willing and able to join us for singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Seated for the call to worship. Okay. This is a poignant weekend, is it not? And I just want to make space and name that for just a moment. I mean, yes, tomorrow we will all be turning our eyes and our faces not necessarily to an event back east, but to locally hear what is available in our community for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There are a number of celebrations that include opportunities for service projects and community singing and gathering and speakers. And so if you find yourself in need of community tomorrow, because there are other events going on in Washington, D.C., I encourage you to partake in those. I know for many of us, the arrival of the inauguration is difficult. We have much fear and trepidation about what policies may come down. We have concern for our neighbors who do not necessarily have legal status in this country. We have concerns for the rights of women to have control over their bodies. We have concerns for the rights and the freedom and the safety of anyone who doesn't fit into a gender binary that is being enforced upon our country by those that would pretend that we are not diverse, who would pretend that we don't each embody in beautiful, wild, and wonderful ways. I hope you will just join me in being in solidarity with our transgender community who feels deep fear about what is yet to come. Our opening poem this morning is written by Mary Oliver, our beloved poet laureate of Unitarian Universalism. I came across this poem, and it's called What the Body Knows. And I just love for the way that it transports us from this place of anticipating and sometimes fearing our own death to resting in what we know is actually going to happen to the body at one point. So here's what she offers to us. I was born here, and I belong here, and I will never leave. The blue heron's gray smoke will flow over me for years, and the wind will decide all directions until I am safely and entirely something else. I am thinking this winter morning of transformation. Of course, I wonder about the mystery that is surely up there in starry space and how some part of me will go there at last. But I am talking now of the way the body speaks and the wind that keeps saying firmly, lovingly, a little while, and then this body will be stone. then it will be water, then it will be air. Let us light our chalice in the good groundingness that is the earth underneath us, grounding us to what is real and what is connected. So please rise for our chalice lighting. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, for the energy of action, and the flames of resistance. You may be seated.
Yeah, I'm the new director of education, or religious exploration, sorry. That's my favorite part. How did I ruin that? Anyone, all the kids can come up, the youngsters and the young at heart. I want to read you a story. It's really good to see all of you. I can't wait to get to know each and every one of you. But for today, I'm going to ask for your help. I'm going to read you a story called Duck, Death, and the Tulip. And I want your help because none of the words in the book talk about the tulip. So I think that the writer wants us to look at his illustrations to understand what the tulip is about. And I'm hoping that all of you will be paying really good attention to the illustrations so you can help me figure out what the tulip has to do with the story, okay? First we have duck, and duck is pretty much what you would expect from duck, except she talks, which is kind of cool. Death is a little bit different than we might expect, and tulip is just kind of a mystery that I need your help with, okay? All right. For a while now, Duck had had a feeling. Who are you? What are you up to, creeping along behind me? Good, said Death. You finally noticed me. I am Death. There's Duck and Death. Duck was scared stiff, and who could blame her? You've come to fetch me? Oh, I've been close all your life, just in case. In case of what? Asked Death. In case something happens to you, a nasty cold, an accident, you never know. Are you going to make something happen? Life takes care of that. The coughs, the colds, and all the other things that happen to you ducks. Fox, for example. Duck tried not to think about that. It gave her goosebumps. Death gave her a friendly smile. Actually, he was nice, if you forgot for the moment who he was. Really, quite nice. Shall we go down to the pond? She asked. Death had been dreading that. Before long, Death decided that he had his limits. Forgive me, he said. I really must get away from this damp. Are you cold? Duck asked. Shall I warm you a little? Nobody had ever offered to do that for Death. Duck woke first, very early in the morning. I'm not dead, she thought to herself. She poked Death in the ribs. "I'm not dead," she quacked, utterly delighted. "I'm pleased for you," Death said, stretching. "And if I'd died?" "Then I wouldn't have been able to sleep in," Death yawned. That wasn't a nice thing to say, thought Death. There they are again, so you guys can see. For a while, she refused to speak, but soon she was chattering again. "Some ducks say you become an angel and sit on a cloud looking over the earth." "Quite possibly." Death rose to his feet. "You have the wings already." "Some ducks say that deep in the earth there's a place where you'll be roasted if you haven't been good." "You ducks come up with some amazing stories. But who knows?" "So you don't know either?" Duck snapped. Death just looked at her. "What shall we do today?" Death asked. "Well, let's not go back to the pond. Let's do something really exciting." Death was relieved. "Shall we climb a tree?" he teased. They could see the pond far below. There it lay, so still and so lonely. "That's what it will be like when I'm dead," Duck thought. "The pond, alone, without me." Death could sometimes read minds. "When you're dead, the pond will be gone too, at least for you." "Are you sure?" Duck was astonished. As sure can be," Death said. "That's a comfort. I won't have to mourn over it when you're dead." Death finished the sentence. He wasn't coy about the subject. "Let's climb down," Duck pleaded after a bit. "You can start to have strange thoughts in trees." Summer was ending, and they went less and less often to the pond. They sat together in the grass, saying little. When a cool wind ruffled her feathers, Duck felt its chill for the first time. "I'm cold," she said one evening. "Will you warm me a little?" Snowflakes drifted down. Something had happened. Death looked at the duck. She'd stopped breathing. She lay quite still. Death stroked a few rumpled feathers back into place. Then he carried her to the great river. He laid her gently on the water and nudged her on her way. For a long time, he watched her. When she was lost to sight, he was almost a little moved. But that's life, thought Death. Did anyone notice what Tulip was doing in the story?
Keeping them company.
Keeping them company, yeah. Who had the tulip? Death. And you know, when I remember, Death had the tulip right when he came in, right when he met Duck. Why do you think he had a tulip? What did he do with the tulip at the end? Did I hold it up well enough for you? Did you see what happened with the tulip at the end? What happened?
He put it on Duck.
He put it on the duck. Why do you think he put it on the duck?
I don't know.
It's kind of tricky.
It's the thing that a lot of people do, and so they decided that they should have it to the duck too.
Yes, yes. Maybe kind of to honor the duck, or to say I love you to the duck, or to say goodbye, maybe. Could I get one of you guys to put this on the altar? This is the tulip. Would anyone mind doing that for me? Okay, cool. Come on up. Thank you.
That was a lovely story. Thank you, Lynn. This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we are grateful. Your gifts help to ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing a Sunday worship offering with a charitable organization that aligns with your principles and values. This month and next, we will be partnering with Stewardship Utah, which is an organization that works to protect the environment through voter education, registration, and advocacy. Please join me in reading our offertory words. They are printed in your order of service. We are this church. We are its heart, hands, heart, and voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We will now accept the offering. For those of you at home, you're welcome to use the giving link online.
This version of the 23rd Psalm is written by Bobby McFerrin and dedicated to his mother, Sarah McFerrin. It uses references to the female divine, swapping out he pronouns for she throughout the psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all I need. She makes me lie down in green meadows. Beside the still waters she will lead. She restores my soul. She rights my wrongs. She leads me in the path of good things. She fills my heart with songs. Even though I walk through a dark and dreary land, there is nothing that can shake me. She has said she won't forsake me. I'm in her hand. She sets a table before me in the presence of my foes. She anoints my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely, surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in her house forever, forever and ever. Glory be to a mother and daughter, and to the Holy of Holies, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be,
For all we have received and for all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing on the many ministries of South Valley and on Stewardship, Utah. So as promised, I have another story. So any children that'd like to come forward can also come forward, and you can just leave your cushions out. This is a short story, and you can also just stay there. So this story is called The Spring Keeper. It's a very, very old story. And it begins like this. Once there was, and twice there wasn't. Two old brothers who were inseparable travelers. One was named Life, and the other Death. One time, after journeying across the desert, they came to a refreshing green oasis where they were greeted by the spring keeper. So for my children out there, who knows what an oasis is? Yes. It's a place of water in the desert, a river or a lake or a pond or a spring. And why is it so necessary to have a spring or an oasis in the desert? Yes. Yeah, because we need to survive in the desert. There are animals and there are insects and birds, and they all rely on that water, and so do the people that are traveling across the water. And so they would always have a spring keeper, someone who was responsible for dipping into the spring and serving it to those who were in need. So the spring keeper says to Life and to Death, "Would you like some cool water to drink?" Both men nodded yes in assent. Dipping his gourd into the pool, the springkeeper added, "It is the custom to let the elder drink first." What does the word elder mean? Yes. Yes. What does it mean to be elder? It means to be older. Yes? Which one of you is the elder? So Life spoke up first. "I am the elder," he said, stepping forward. "No," Death said. "I am the elder." And he stepped forward too to stand next to his brother. I feel like I should have Cate down here as like brother and sister or sister and sister. I can be Life and she can be Death, white and black or black and white. You can depend on how we want to do that. "I am the elder," Death said. Life smiled but said, "That's impossible. Things must live before they die." And Death responded, "On the contrary, things begin in death. They are born, live for a time, and then return to death." Said Life, "That's not how it works at all. All things come from the Creator and live and then die. Death began after the first creature lived and died." Said Death, a spark in his eyes. "Death is the before and the after of all life. Things arise from it and return to it. Therefore, death is the elder." You can see they've maybe had this conversation a few times. The two debated like this until the next spring. So a whole year they argued in front of the spring keeper. And they had yet to drink a single drop of the water. And finally, after a whole year of arguing, they asked the spring keeper to judge truly who was the eldest. "Gentlemen, I cannot say," said the spring keeper. "What you've each told me is true." He looked at the two brothers. "How can one speak of death without life? Death is like a desert until rain falls, and then all living things sprout miraculously from the rocks and sand." He smiled. "And how can one speak of life without death, to which all things are certain to return?" The springkeeper paused. Neither can exist without the other. The Creator wears both of these masks. Neither of you is elder or younger. And he held out the single drinking gourd. Drink now together and go in peace. And the two travelers took the gourd, drank their fill, and headed off in the comfort of each other's company.
Death is not funny. There is no humor in it, ever. However, humor, sarcasm, defiance, and particularly good timing are valuable when dealing with what's happened in the past or to prepare for what may be coming. Comic relief can be such a welcome coping mechanism. It gives us a moment outside that dark hole and brings a flash of hope, levity amongst all that hard stuff, like insurance policies. Woody Allen says, "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." We seek rituals to soothe and heal us by repetition and familiarity. Many cultures use various symbols to escort a person in death to transition and to guide those of us who are left in prayer and healing. Yogic breathing is used to calm your mind in the moment of despair and to help maintain balance. And Mother Nature can give you perspective that life abounds around you and invites your partaking. Last week, Court's children's book reminded us to build a life of love and community together when we have the space and time, perhaps in preparation for the unexpected. In this way, it helps you face inevitable and probably devastating feelings. All of you have stories poignantly heartbreaking. Some of you have complex feelings about a particular death, and we acknowledge that you may struggle with that reckoning. We rely on these external supports to help us through, and as Willie Nelson sings, it's not something you get over, it's something you get through. Every one of us have experienced death, maybe babies who didn't survive outside our bodies. There are those of you who have lost a child, a spouse, a partner, and maybe a grandparent who lived to 100. Death may be unexpected or expected, it's still a shock. It could be a natural occurrence or by their own design. We have been and will continue to be touched, slammed, sucker punched, or eased into death. But life goes on for those of us left behind. In a moment, we can swing from getting through it to breaking down, and we won't know why, but something will tick it off. But as human, thinking, sensate beings, we have found a way, using humor, be it gallows, like again, Willie Nelson singing, "Roll me up and smoke me when I die." But maybe there'll be a moment of defiance, F cancer and its nasty buddies, F war and guns. Maybe you're a writer or a painter and can memorialize that person and take lots of pictures. You'll never regret that. We educate ourselves. What's my end going to look like, Doc? Or how do we prepare? What will guide you out of this valley of your life? It won't be just one thing. It will always be with you, just in different ways. And it will take a community of loving friends. I have an address book I started in 1994. I pull it out every year to address my Christmas cards. Yes, we have the computer spreadsheet version, all alphabetized and sanitized. But mine has the names of dear friends, addresses crossed out 7 or 8 times, in pen and pencil and never erased. Those I've lost touch with but remember fondly. People I've known nearly my whole life, and the older folks who are a compass to me, and the precious ones who are no longer here. As you can imagine, 30 years later, many are gone, but never forgotten. Another precious page has my daughter Shayna's attempt to write her name at the age of 6. Writing and language came late and very hard for her. You would not recognize her name on that page. However, she is very much alive and can write her name in cursive now. But I'll never use the computer version, and I'll never replace my version, even though it's running low on pages, because it is a memory at Christmas, that time we set aside for remembrances and set a place at the table for those who are no longer here, like those precious Christmas tree ornaments. It's what I'll save in a fire. I had a different ending planned, but you get my message. I'd like to leave you with a little different message. A man who does not have something for which he is willing to die is not fit to live. That's a quote from Martin Luther King. That's a hard concept. What are you willing to die for? I've wondered about that question as I get older. The more I read and see, what am I willing to die for? I don't have an answer. As January 20th dawns tomorrow, we need to remember the teachings of MLK, a man who has almost become larger in death than life. We know his superhuman traits were to stand for justice, nonviolence, and love, no matter the circumstances. We must keep that in our heads and hearts as we go forward into 2025. It's starkly here. Hopefully, we do not need to die, and no one is asking or expecting you to. But build your life in love, community, and wisdom. You may need to be using it sooner than you think. Is that too bleak? How about this? I'll leave you with a quote from that old sage, Winnie the Pooh. You may know this. If ever there is tomorrow when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is, even if we're apart, I'll always be with you.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Some of you may have conscious memories of this, and some of you may not. But how many people remember 3 or 4 years ago something called COVID? Yeah? And even if you maybe don't remember it, how many of you have heard people tell stories about COVID? Yeah. Who wants to tell me something that they remember about COVID? We'll take a couple people telling me a little bit about what do you remember about COVID? Yes, what do you remember? There was a bunch of people with COVID. Yeah.
Everybody had to wear masks.
Everybody masks. Yes. Your daycare got destroyed. Max. Grandpa died. Yeah. Because of COVID. Yeah. So COVID was something called a pandemic, right? So COVID-19, it's named that because it started in 2019. And it was a sickness that affected the whole world, right? And there was a lot of people who died during that time. That's why we call it a global pandemic, because it was a disease that was spread among many, many people. And in this community, we have a number of people who lost grandparents, friends, partners, brothers, sisters, children. And we had a habit of lighting some candles during that time, and Ren, I'll need your help. Because every year we have a celebration around Samhain in October. Are you comfortable using one of these? Okay. And we started lighting our COVID candles every year, these 3 black candles. Want to light one of them for me? I think we just do this. Like that. I'm not sure that one's going to light that well because the wick's kind of, Well, we'll keep working on that one. The wick's a little messed up on that one. So we would light these to remember all of the people who had died that we knew, as well as all the people who died that we didn't know. And also in this community, when someone not related to COVID, just when someone who we know in this community dies, we light a candle for them on Sunday morning, and that is our purple candle in the back. Why do you think we light candles? Anyone have an idea why we like to light candles? Is it kind of similar maybe to why we have flowers? The heat rising up. Yeah, the heat and the light rising up. So like flowers, we light flowers in part because it's a way to honor people, but candles are another way that we can honor people. And we have these collective processes so that we can remember and hold those people who are no longer with us, right? So, is COVID-19 the first time that there was ever a sickness that swept over the earth? No, right? No, it's happened in the past. Does anyone remember from school maybe a really big and important one that happened like a long, long time ago? Surely somebody knows. The Black Plague, right? The Black Death of the Black Plague. And back then, people didn't know how diseases spread, right? Now in 2025, we have something called germ theory, right? But back then they didn't know. But yet the doctors would wear those costumes right on the end, right? With the big hood and the beaked mask. Does anyone have any idea why they wore the beaked mask? It was to protect their sense of smell, because they didn't have what we have today, the way to take care of communities who were experiencing Black Death. And so there was smell involved in that. And so they would put flowers in their mask. And also because they didn't have germ theory, but they knew that somehow the disease was spreading from person to person, they figured out that if they wore some sort of covering on their face, that it made it a little easier to not get sick. A little easier to not get sick. The Black Plague was a disease, not like COVID at all. It was brought over on ships that had, the story goes either rats or gerbils, depending on which story you read, and that because they didn't have sanitation the way that we do, like every week we put our trash cans out and the trash comes and picks it up and we know to wash our hands, and we have all these wonderful things in the modern world that help us to stay healthy when we live in groups with one another. But they didn't have all that information then. And so the rats and the gerbils came over and they brought disease, and then the people got sick, and then it spread from person to person after that. Right? And so the doctors tried very hard, and so they thought, well, if you eat a lot of garlic, or if you grind up certain herbs, like maybe you can protect yourselves. Did any of those really work, you think? No, they didn't really work that well, right? Because they didn't know about germ theory, right? Now we know that there are bacteria and viruses, and we know how to treat them, right? So then, that was the first one, and a lot of people died, not just in Europe, but all over the world, all across Asia. Many, many, many people died. Yes? I don't know so much about America. It may have been that the North America was more protected from that, or we just don't have any records of that, because people weren't traveling as frequently. There was more travel between Asia and Europe that we know about at that point, rather than to... They didn't get it. Thank you, Joshua. I was like, that wasn't in my story, so I don't remember. But yeah. So then, a couple hundred years go by. Yes? You had to stay in the hospital because you had asthma? Yeah, that must have been scary. Was your mom there with you? your dad slept with you. It's good to have that kind of comfort, huh? It's important when we don't feel good to have people we care about next to us. And there was a TV in there. That's awesome. I bet they would have liked to have the TV during the Black Plague, but they did not have the TV. It was very quiet back then. So a bunch of centuries go by, and then in the 1918s, which is about 100 years ago, there was another big sickness that went around. Anyone want to guess what that was? There's a clue on the slide. Nope. This is in 1918. The Spanish flu, right? And what was different between the Black Plague and Spanish flu was called germ theory, right? So people knew about germ theory in 1918. And so they were better able to protect themselves. And so people more frequently wore masks during 1918. And so even though still it was a very terrible flu, a lot of people still died. Fewer people died in the Spanish flu than in the Black Plague, right? So both in the plague and the Spanish flu, people were learning that you have to have masks, that you have to keep people who are sick apart from one another, but in the Spanish flu, they still didn't have a lot of medicine to help people survive Spanish flu, right? So then we get to the Asian flu, which I think was like the 1990s, early 2000s. I think that's the one they're referring to. And that came along, and what did we have then? We had a lot more medical treatments, right? And we started to have things called flu vaccines that people could get. Flu vaccines is a shot that you can get that can help prevent you from getting sick. Or if you do get sick, help you not get as sick, right? How many people have had vaccines in their life or know what vaccines are? Yeah. So, and in this congregation, one of the things we talk about in our congregation is we talk about the importance of science, right? We talk about the importance of science and following the science, right? And so we're a congregation that believes that medicine and science are good, right? And then there's COVID-19, which everyone in this room has a personal experience of. It was a global pandemic and a personal experience. It was a global pandemic and a personal experience, right? And what was different this time is we had masks, we had germ theory, we had hygiene, ability to quarantine, and then we had a vaccine. What do you think about that? What do you think about the scientists who have worked so hard from the Black Plague until today? Have the scientists given us some life? Yeah, they've given us life, right? Are they able to prevent all death? No. Death is still part of our life, right? But we have more opportunities to be together in community and take good care of ourselves. And that's what we're doing in community. So I just we haven't had a chance to talk about COVID-19 together as a community for quite some time because it can be kind of easy to forget about it a little bit because it's not here right now.
Do we have more medical treatment from COVID-19?
Yes, now we have not only just vaccines, we also have treatment for people when they get sick with COVID. They can take various different medicines that will help them.
We have TVs to help.
Yes, like we have TVs in our rooms, and I'm sure that helps the people who have COVID-19 and who can't be around their loved ones.
We don't have TV.
Yeah, some parents don't let children have TVs in their bedrooms. It's probably a smart thing, but you have an iPad for when you're sick. Yeah. So, okay. So I just want to have a chance to talk about that and then circle back around one more time to this idea of the candle, right? So we had flowers with Lynn and we laid a candle or laid a tulip on that. I want to give you guys a candle to take home. And so if you have someone that you love that has recently died or passed away, it could be a pet, it could be a grandparent.
It could be a cousin.
It could be a cousin. It could be a friend. I invite you to take one of these candles this week and just light it and remember that beloved person who was, or pet that was part of your life. Would you like to do that with me? Okay. So Ryan, would you like to hand these out? And Ella, you can help if you wish. And after you get your candle, if you'd like to stay up here, you can. We're going to sing a final song together, or you can go back and sing with your families, whatever you choose.
Hello, everyone. So if you'll please rise and stand as you are able and willing, we're going to sing hymn number 81. Since this one is less familiar, I'm going to sing it with Rick accompanying once through, all the way through, and then we'll sing it together. The wordless mountains bravely still, the ground below us firm and free, the gentle quilt of field and hill shall grant us solid dignity.
For the extinguishing of our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action, and we hold each other in our hearts until we meet again. As you prepare to leave this space, I have one final story of death, and may it delight you just ever so slightly. So many years ago, when my son Ethan was in second grade, they did that project that so many second grade classrooms do, right? Where they grow monarch butterflies. How sweet, how beautiful. From chrysalis until time of birth and the wings drying, and then finally the day arrives when you release them. And it was finally that day in Ethan's life for his classroom, and they went out into the garden area outside, and they opened up the container, and the butterflies were released, and a bird swooped in and ate the butterflies. And bless her heart, the teacher said, "Children, that is the cycle of life." So may you go in peace. May you go in love. And may a butterfly be ever in your heart. And may the bird not swoop you up this week. Amen. And please be seated for the postlude.
Ka hike mai luna mai e ona me ahuna no e au ona mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai ka hike mai luna